Hello. It's Monday, March 1st already, and the weather has been fairly nice. It's all relative, right? So, welcome to chapter 9 today in the book of John. But first, I have a couple of announcements, I guess. I want to thank very much the people who delivered the takeout Lent boxes. We were worried that we wouldn't have enough volunteers, but we did. And so I'd like to thank Ken McNevin, Dick Armour, Carol Paul, Diane Zaharian, Annie Major, and Carol Stewart. And I really hope I didn't forget anybody. If I did, thank you also. You were all amazing, and we couldn't have done it without you. Now, the next thing I have to say is a couple of women in the church have this brilliant, I think, idea. We have all been frustrated because we can't do any mission work or very little during COVID, and so one person in particular has been doing her own mission work, Terry McNevin, and the idea is to put a plastic bin outside of the Eagle Street door, and we're going to start tomorrow, Tuesday, and it will go to a homeless shelter, the Haven, which is also a Christian ministry. And every couple of weeks we'll change what they need. We'll find out what else they need. And you can put things in that bin during office hours. So I hope you all feel inclined to do that, and that it makes us feel good too, to help others. I think it's an important part of anybody's life, and especially during this difficult time. So here's what they need. Right now they need paper products. They need paper plates, paper towels, Kleenex, Lysol wipes and Lysol spray, toilet paper, food handling gloves, and shampoo and conditioners. So I think that'll get us started, and we'll stay with this list for a couple of weeks. So there you go. I hope you all find it in your heart to contribute. So now, back to John. In chapter 8, Jesus had just announced that he is the light of the world. Now, he has said it in other ways in the book of John, but now he's announcing it to everyone. And so in chapter 9, this chapter for today, the presence of light became literal because Jesus healed a blind man, taking him from his darkness to light. I see, said the blind man as he picked up his hammer and saw. Sorry, corny old joke, but I couldn't resist. No, that's not how this guy saw. As we've seen when Jesus has shown other miracles, there are those who oppose whatever Jesus does. And since this miracle was on the Sabbath, the religious leaders jumped all over that and tried to say that the healing didn't really happen, it wasn't a miracle, etc. Really, Pharisees? A man blind from birth can suddenly see, and you're claiming you don't believe it? Now, when Jesus saw this blind man, his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? In those days, it was commonly believed that people suffered because God was punishing them for sin. And the more people sinned, the more they suffered. All through time, people from almost every religion and philosophy have thought that suffering happens to those who have earned it. And so the disciples' question was valid to them. And in this case, they thought the parents were being punished for their sins through their son. But what Jesus knew was that suffering happens for any number of reasons, and sometimes for no apparent reason at all. And in our sin-filled world, bad things happen. So we should respond to that with spiritual humility and not arrogant certainty. Jesus wanted his disciples to know that God was present in the midst of suffering, regardless of the reason. Then there were questions. First, from this man who was healed, his own neighbors. Some didn't believe that this was the same person, even though he assured them it was. When they asked, "How were your eyes opened?" he didn't know. Jesus had healed him, and then he had immediately disappeared into the crowd. Jesus wanted to do his Father's work while there was still time. He knew his death was nearer every day. And while he was still on earth, he wanted to bring light to those who were willing to receive it. Well, then, back to the man who was healed, the Pharisees questioned him. And again, he told them what happened. But the Pharisees, looking for any flaws in Jesus, said, "This man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath. And since he was therefore a sinner, he wouldn't be able to perform this miracle." That is really shady logic, isn't it? Not logic at all. And then the Pharisees interrogated the man's parents. And the parents said, "Ask him yourself." They knew if they answered in any detail, they'd be banished from the synagogue if they let on that they believed Jesus was the Messiah. And back to the healed man, the Pharisees went. They wanted him to say God healed him and not that sinner Jesus. By now the man must have been frustrated and angry, and he says to them, "One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see." And then these persistent Pharisees asked him again how he had been healed. This brave man answered, "Do you also want to become his disciples?" Of course the Pharisees were furious and threw him out of the synagogue. Jesus found him and spoke with him and identified himself as the Messiah, and the man believed. I think I would too. The Pharisees had spiritual blindness and were still in darkness, but the blind man was in the light, both literally and spiritually. And so here's the question for you. Who was blind in this story? Well, the disciples were when they thought blindness was caused by sin. The parents were when they were too afraid to support and defend their son. The Pharisees were blindest of all because they refused to believe Jesus no matter how many miracles he did. So ask God to show you any blind spots you might have, and then tell Jesus, "I want to see." See you next time.